jamming a lot of stuff, whereas this one, it's sorry, my kids are ringing me. Right, how do I get this full screen again? So,
fucking hell.
Sorry, mate.
Would you like to answer it? You can answer it if you want.
No.
Seems important. They keep calling. Hi, my name is Will, and welcome to the Distorted Transmission for tonight. I am talking to, well, a guy from a band called Dead Favours from Auckland. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Could you introduce yourself and, of course, all the members who are not present?
I'm not here. So I'm Jared. I'm singer and guitarist at Dead Favours, and Kyle is our other guitarist. Charlie plays drums, and Alex plays bass. And we're a little rock band from Auckland.
Hardly a little rock band anymore.
Nah.
All right. So next thing is the rough history of the band. Could you give me like a very brief rundown?
Charlie just posted a message on Facebook saying he wanted to start a band. So I just replied to his message. I was like, dude, let's get together and have a jam and see where it goes. And we kind of did that. Kyle came in really quickly. Then we found a bass player really quickly. And this was like end of 2015. And then we just started jamming and writing songs, and it kind of came really easily. And we got funding. So then we went over to Melbourne and started working with Tom Larkin, and it kind of just spiraled from there, really. And then we got funding for the first album. So then the whole time, I think we've kind of been chasing our tail. Like, we got funding, and therefore we had to write an album because we got funding. So those kind of things where you kind of just aim quite high, and if you get it, then you kind of just make it work. And that was 5 years ago, and so now we're here putting out album number 2.
Right, and you've managed to achieve quite a lot in that time. I looked up your Discogs because although I've heard of your band and I've seen your name around, and you've done a few things, I'm not 100% up with everything you do.
Sure.
You had the Dead EP in 2018, you had Misbehavior in 2019, and now you've got your second album, full album, Riffing and Yelling. I did notice that Misbehavior had a hefty 10 tracks, whereas your most recent album had 6. Do you feel that you sort of bit off more than you could chew with your first album? Or was it something else that made you decide to have a shorter release? So
Riffing and Yelling is actually a 2-part album. So the first 6 tracks that we've released is like a side A.
I see.
We're currently writing side B at the moment. We were planning to record at the end of this year, but with all the COVID stuff that's gone down, it's just pushed it out quite far. So
sure.
Early next year, we'll get into the studio, record the second half of this album, and then we're going to physically release them as almost like a double EP, basically.
Okay.
And so put it together as one body of work. And the idea is that we kind of write them in the same theme and the same idea so that it kind of works together, but 2 separate parts.
So it's going to be what, kind of 12 songs, or?
Yeah, we're aiming for 11 or 12, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's even more ambitious than your first album, so well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so, like, when we started writing this in early 2020, and like we were going through lockdowns, and obviously COVID had hit, and just being able to logistically make this work in the normal kind of framework that a band would make an album, it just wasn't going to work. And so we quickly realized that we have to kind of be a bit more creative. So that we came up with the kind of idea of doing a double EP, and it's actually played out really well, because we wouldn't have been able to make the album that we had first wanted to make anyway. So
is the second part going to be like a sort of a play on the riffing and yelling, like, riffing and yelling and screaming and grunting or something, like part 1 and part 2, or just be like sort of 1 and 2? Or
the reason we actually called it Riffing and Yelling, it actually doesn't have anything to do with the album, but it was just that when we were recording the first tracks for this A-side EP, the producer, the engineer, was trying to tell me about a part. He's like, are we going back to this part in the song, or which part in the song? And I was trying to tell him, and he couldn't work out which part we were going back to. And then when he figured it out, he's like, oh, you mean the part that's just riffing and yelling? And I was like, fucking genius. Like, that explains it. There's a guy with a guitar just riffing and then me just yelling.
When I heard that name, riffing and yelling, I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's just, playing the guitar and yelly vocals. It's kind of rock music personified, isn't it? So since we're on the subject of the guy in the studio, perhaps we can talk about where you recorded it. So could you tell me where did you actually record the album?
The bulk of the music type stuff at Roundhead. And then we worked between Roundhead and a place called Depot Studios, which is in Devonport. And so we went into Roundhead for 3 days and we just tracked everything live, which is way different to what we did on the first album. It was very track by track, which is kind of the modern way, right? Like, you put drums down and then you put bass on and then you put guitar on. So we went into this planning to just record all of the music live, and then we could go back at Depot and do all the vocals over the top and just overdub bits and pieces and different guitar tones and stuff. So between those two studios.
So were you in the A or the B studio in Roundhead?
We were in A. We were in A.
Lucky man.
Yeah, it was just a little bucket list thing, to do something. Like, Roundhead B is fantastic, amazing. There's many great songs being made there, but I guess because we wanted to do it live as well, like, A's 3 times the size.
It's quite an expensive room, yeah.
Yeah. So for us to be able to stand there as a full band, drums, guitars, everything in the room, and kind of do it together at the same time, it was nice to have the space. And
well, that's the way the Beatles did it.
Absolutely.
Did COVID cause you any major inconvenience over the course of recording and promoting the album?
Yeah, heaps of inconvenience. Part of the reason that we have made this in 2 parts was because of COVID and trying to juggle not only recording and those kind of things, but juggle actually writing as a band and getting into a room together as 4 dudes has been really difficult. And then juggling people's commitments with work and producers and all that kind of thing. It has been really difficult to make this happen. Right. So, super proud and stoked that we've got where we've got with this first half, and then we're again just navigating COVID to be able to get the second half done, which was supposed to be we were supposed to be in the studio like we had planned for November, so we would be in the studio now, but everything's just been pushed out so far because all of the dates that we had planned, it just hasn't been able to happen.
Out the window.
Yeah, it's also affected the way that we've written the album, which has been interesting, but it's also been quite cool just to kind of push that a little bit. And so the first album we made a lot more as a collective, 4 people in a room, but this one's been a lot more like at home. I've got like a little studio set up at home, so I kind of would write 30 to 60 second ideas and send that to the guys, and then we'd take that into the rehearsal room when we can get there, and we'd jam on it and kind of create this vibe, and then I would take it away and make a bit of a demo of that, and then we would take that to the producer. And the same sort of thing, Kyle has bought like a bunch of riffs, and then we've been able to kind of work out the vibe of the song from there, and then I've kind of taken it away and worked on things and brought some demos out from that, which has kind of just been really because we haven't been able to have the time and the space to do it like we normally would.
The response to the album has been favorable, obviously, having been nominated for Best Rock Artist at the 2021 Aotea Music Awards. That's a massively long sentence. Were you surprised at this outcome?
When we went into writing this album, we aimed for this and we really tried really hard. We put everything into it to get to that point. So I think there was a part of me that was like, oh, fuck yeah, okay, we did it. And I think if we hadn't got nominated, I would have been like disappointed, but I would have been like, I get it, because there's many other great bands putting out albums, and it would have been what it was. But I think we aimed for this from day dot, and I think we really pushed the bar high to be able to get it. And so it's really, it feels really good when you get the nomination that you're like, fuck yeah, I worked hard for this and I got it. So I don't think there was surprise. I think there was like just pride.
Excellent. Congratulations. Hopefully it all works out.
Yeah, me too.
So, what are some of the most memorable gigs that you've had over the past few years? Have there been any that kind of stick out?
We've been lucky, man. We've been lucky. We got the Royal Blood shows. We did 2 shows with Royal Blood. And I think they were just we were a really good fit for those shows. It was a very similar audience. We're quite a similar kind of sound and a similar kind of market, I guess.
Yeah.
And we had some really good radio traction at the time. So we played Auckland and Wellington with them. Both shows were like 3,000 to 4,000 people.
Wow.
And we had played a bunch of shows before then, so we were kind of like really in a rhythm, and we just played great, and the shows were great, and the reaction from the crowd was great. So those would definitely be a couple of standouts, I'd say.
I didn't realize that you're playing to crowds that large, like 4,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was really fun, and it was kind of like it was interesting to learn about playing to that many people and how it's different, how you need to interact with people differently. And we were just used to playing little shows. So
I went to the Cypress Hill show. This is showing my age. This is way back in the day. Cypress Hill played, and I think it was Ice Cube supported, and it was a massive crowd.
Wow.
And he just totally failed to land it.
Oh, really?
Nobody was like singing back the lyrics. Nobody knew the lyrics, and he got really pissed about it. And I've often wondered about playing to very large crowds that, like, if things are going well, things are going real well. But when things start to turn a bit to shit, if you don't quite connect, like, it might be exponentially worse because there's like 4,000 or 5,000 people really not digging it, and that sort of collective energy, that negative vibe must be like a tidal wave of negative energy.
People feed off people, like people feed off people's vibes. And if the guy next to you is having a super fun time, then it just automatically, you feel in much more of a space to have fun yourself. And that then amplified by thousands of people, And so you're right. When it flops, it's really hard to pull it back because you've got to pull a whole lot of people back. But when it's going really well, it just keeps going better and better, and it's just so much fun. Next
thing was about the Behemoth beer. Getting a name on an IPA seems to be a favorite achievement for a few bands I've noticed. How did that collab come about? And I'm actually asking for a friend.
You know what? It was as simple as us being fans of Behemoth and we literally just messaged them and was like, hey, we love your beer. Like, if you ever wanted to do anything together, we'd be super keen. Initially, he came back and he was like, hey, cool. Yeah, I actually really like your band. And, if there's something in the future, let's work together. And then I think he messaged us a couple of months later, and he was like, look, we're going to put out a hazy IPA, and it sort of coincides with the album coming out and stuff, we should do something together. And we were just like, of course, fucking yes. They gave us all the artwork and stuff. Is this cool? And all of it just looked great, and we loved the beer, and it was great. So it was very easy, but it just really started with us reaching out to them and just kind of being like, hey, we've got this in the pipeline, so we could tie in some things together, and we really like your beer, and we'd love to work with you.
And the last question is just, is there any last words? Is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview?
Man, just grateful for people that support me, and like guys like you that want to interview me. Like, I'm just a little dude like writing music. It's awesome. And like, go and listen to our shit because it's great.
Thanks very much for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, and all the best for 2022.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. And thanks for watching.